But we're gonna move on to let's talk about the 2K League draft. I was, as
Yes.
most people know, I was there this week. This is what we're talking about with the weather and the extreme cold. It was freezing, but the event itself I thought was really good and very much um in like the last year's event wasn't horrible or anything, but this one was just flat bigger and better. For the first, the first thing is that last year's event was held in the Hulu Theater, which is a much smaller venue. If you really remember back in the day, it's the old Felt Forum where they used to have the NBA draft back a long time ago. But now it's the Hulu Theater, so, and it's smaller. It's cool, but it's smaller.
I like the
It,
Hulu. They have some good shows out there.
yeah, now but this one was at the Barclays Center, which is
Mhm.
obviously a much bigger venue, a bigger deal the whole nine. So that's the first thing that you pop in, you see. But the biggest story of the entire draft was Chiquita Evans, the first ever female drafted into the NBA 2K League. I got a chance to interview her today,
Mhm.
which so you guys be on the lookout for that. That's coming up. Um, man, I'm gonna tell you, she has the quality that is going to be needed to do what it is that she's about to do. Because whenever you're first, oftentimes you're not first because only because of your skill, right? It's not only because of that. It's also because you have to have the right temperament to deal with some of the stuff that's going to happen. Very similar to like Jackie Robinson. And I'm not necessarily like putting her on the same level because this is obviously two entirely different level stages. But Jackie Robinson was chosen to be the person who was the first African American in Major League Baseball, not only because he was a great baseball player. That there were other great baseball players in the Negro leagues, but Jackie Robinson was chosen by Branch Rickey partially because they knew that he had what it took to deal with some of the stuff that he was going to have to deal with. So I think that not that Chiquita is walking into a situation where she's going to be being heckled every day or anything like that. It's not that. It's just about the overall pressure of being the first and feeling as though you have to represent for for who you are. And so I came away from our conversation today feeling really good about that with her. So I can't wait to actually share that because I'll be sharing that a little bit later on. But that was a huge part of the whole event. She was selected in the fourth round by Warriors Gaming, and with the 56 pick overall. And I'm going to tell you, the ovation for her was the loudest for anybody. I'm talking about not even the number one pick in the draft, Rhea, that went to Jazz Game and got anywhere near the ovation that Chiquita got. And she didn't expect that. She really didn't. She actually kind of didn't know what to expect, right? And you could kind of see it on her face. So it was definitely a pretty cool moment. It was definitely a pretty cool moment. So she wasn't the only young lady and had an opportunity. There was another young lady, Brianna Novin, aka Icy Girl, who I pretty much kind of knew she wasn't going to get drafted. Just kind of looking at some of the combine stuff, I knew that just wasn't going to happen. She wasn't. Maybe she'll be ready down the line, but I knew that wasn't it this year. I knew it wasn't going to happen. So I don't think that anyone was surprised that she went undrafted. Another takeaway that I had was chemistry is a humongous deal this year with the 2K League. Huge. Last year, there were so many situations with these teams where these guys got into it with each other and it literally broke down everything they're doing. So anybody that's watching this stream and you've played pro am before and you got to arguing with your point guard, you got to argue with your center or whatever, you know how that can just kill a game, right? Now imagine living with people all the time, every day, and this is an ongoing issue. Not to mention there's something else that might have happened that didn't even happen on the court that now is spilled on to the virtual court. So I saw a lot of consideration being given to to the chemistry thing. When these GMs were drafting these players, they weren't just drafting them based on their stick skills. They would draft them a lot based on how they felt that they were going to fit from a chemistry standpoint. So I don't know. I got like 10 things I wanted to go over about this. I talked about 3 of them already. If you want to jump in anytime here, Books, let me know if you got something to say about any of this stuff. Another thing that stuck out to me was there were a ton of players denying interviews. Like, so basically, once you make the draft pool, the way the process works is that you have to get, teams get the permission to interview you or what have you. But you don't have to take those interviews. And there were a lot of players not taking interviews from certain teams. I think personally that was a mistake. I know maybe they're emulating things that they've seen in others, like, actual live action sports leagues where you see people doing that. But I think what they don't realize is that they don't have the same leverage that those guys have.
It goes back to what we've been telling these guys before. And on this point, I want to say just on the draft, I'm obviously happy for Red Stick. He's done some interviews.
Yes.
Chill guy. I've spoken to him a lot, and happy that he got in, and also happy for the Island Gang that those guys.
Yes, Slay.
Yes,
Bear the Beast.
Yeah, everybody from, I think their whole crew got in. I know Slay got in, and I've watched a lot of their streams, and very mature, professional comp guys, and I think and consistent too. And that's going to what I'm talking about. In other esports, people build up a following and they build up their skills, and that gives them value. The skill gap in NBA 2K has still not widened to the point that you're not replaceable as a player, and nobody, literally nobody who's in the 2K league has enough of a personality to be comparable to the biggest personalities in 2K or other esports. They're all totally replaceable. So what they need to understand is bunker mentality. You're all on the same team, making this esport legitimate. Because right now, nobody watches, nobody cares. There's literally someone streaming Apex Legends, Fortnite, and Overwatch right now. I'm not even looking at Twitch. You guys, I'll bet on it, that have more viewers than 2K League has ever gotten. An individual, not a tournament, just a person. You know what I'm saying? So you don't, like you said, you don't have any leverage because you don't have any value. Now, if the game gets a serious skill gap where only the very, very, very best players can possibly win a game, and it becomes like real life basketball, where having a LeBron or a Giannis or a Zach LaVine makes your team that much better, then you can say, I make you better. So that's my leverage. Right now, the game isn't to that point yet. It's a system oriented game where the most important thing is communication and cooperation, not necessarily individual stick skills. The game has too flat of a skill level right now. So unless you either build up a serious following or the skill gap widens, you hold a hand in hand with everybody in the 2K league. Y'all shouldn't be fighting nobody. You know what I'm saying? Because this is all about creating the most entertaining product possible. And on that note, I'll say the draft was pretty solid. I think the commentary and presentation has been improving
vastly.
Yeah, like that's been really great for the 2K League. I don't want to only poo-poo it because I said it's going to be growing pains and I said they're going to improve and all that stuff. And I'm glad to see that improvement is happening. Now, I really want to see the product improve. I need to see much better action and presentation on the court. If we go through another season of 5 out, this is not just for 2K. Any game that goes through this, if there's only one meta, the game gets stale and viewership goes down. Blizzard is bending over backwards to keep something called GOATS Comp from taking over the meta. They don't want only one way to play. Styles make fights, and we need to see more styles in the 2K League, and 2K needs to help them out with the video game presentation aspect of it. Because right now, just even watching it, it needs to get closer to the entertainment value of watching an NBA game.
I would agree. With pretty much everything you said. There is no one currently in the league, not even Dimes, and I know that's the one that people would think about, who has enough of enough clout to be that important where they can do. Now, here's the thing: we say that, But Mavs Gaming is almost treating Dimes as if he is on that level, because what we just saw this year was there was a ton of dissension with Dimes and his team the entire last season. You know, I've had people tell me literally by mid-season, every single one of his teammates couldn't stand him. Like, I've had people tell me that, right? And during the offseason, Mavs Gaming wiped the entire roster clean except for him. And if you looked at the draft, the way they drafted, you could tell they literally treated him like he was LeBron. They drafted only personalities that would mesh with him, you know, so or at least that they think will match, because you don't really know until you get them all in there, right? But Pete B. Ballin, Grant Monster, by any means Mo. I'm just slipping my mind right now the other guys that were drafting, but they literally rebuilt their entire team around Dimes. It was Sherm and Rux, and Rux was in the league last year. He played for Pistons GT. So I mean, this is literally what they did. So one thing and Dimes is funny because Dimes was called the LeBron James of the NBA 2K League, right? And they were doing that as kind of a loose thing. That was a lot of people who don't actually play 2K that would kind of throwing that moniker out there because he was known as the best player and LeBron's the best, so whatever like that. But honestly, there's really some similarities in this, and I wrote about this today, because most people think that LeBron is kind of like lead GM as well. And it looked as if that's what Mavs Gaming did with Dimes this year.
Is the GM?
Yeah, he is the GM. You know what I mean? So it looked like that a lot. So it's going to be really interesting. But I think that Mavs Gaming had a great draft because they did get really good players who do have on the surface the types of personalities that will mesh well with him. So that was actually one of my biggest takeaways from what I saw. The other thing, and this kind of lends itself to what you're talking about, the league is missing statistical access, just giving that access to not only the community and the fans, but to the media itself. I say all the time, right? You know why we get so excited for the NBA draft and why we get so excited for the NFL draft? It's because we have a frame of reference, right? I know Zion Williamson averaged 18 points a game, 13 rebounds, a block and a half, and a steal and a half, and all. I know this.
On 98% shooting.
Right. I know this because I can watch his games, and if I can't watch his games, I can go to sportsreference.com or ESPN.com and I can see his stat line, and it gives me some reference. The 2K League doesn't have that because when they do their combine, they're super secret with all of the statistics. You know, they don't want to so they're like, oh no, when we track more than points per game, rebounds, block shots, and everything, we track things like steal efficiency and block shot efficiency and green percentage.
Can I pause you right there though?
Yeah.
This problem is already solved in the world of 2K. If you go onto YouTube and you put Park Pro-Am mixtape, you will find a bunch of things that if you at all like 2K will either be entertaining, funny, interesting, or put you off depending on what your preferences are. This is good because this means that it's comparable to every other product out there. You do not get the same thing from 2K League because 2K League is a completely different build in a completely different space. You see what I'm saying? So the flaw of Pro-Am, we talked about this on the show, the badges are too overpowered. So it leads to an imbalanced game. But anyone who's a fan of competitive gaming will tell you imbalanced games are sometimes the most fun games to watch. So,
go ahead.
Well, as much as some of the personalities aren't my cup of tea, and some of the tactics they use when it comes to park and stuff like that, I could say, well, that's not basketball, that's not sim, or blah, blah, blah. Some of it's funny, some of it's entertaining, and most importantly, some of it is a wider skill gap on an individual level than what's happening in 2K League. Right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So the 2K League plays like a soccer game, and Americans don't like soccer for a reason. Because you want to see the kind of individual skill, not that soccer doesn't have it, but the kind of individual skill that shines on the same consistent basis as the NBA. They need, and the product needs to, and that's what the stats, and to get to your point about the stats, That's what the stats reflect.
Yes.
So when we talk about Michael versus LeBron in terms of the scoring, and we both agree that LeBron's not the same level of scorer. We know this from watching the game and watching the head-to-head matches, watching Mike take over a game in his way and watching LeBron take over a game in his way, and Kobe and Magic taking it over in their way. And we're comparing actual emotional memories and experiences. That's not happening with the 2K League. I've watched a bunch of it, and some of the comebacks were thrilling, but it was very much a team, completely, structure oriented thing, which is not a good thing because that means that it's too flat. There's not, and when I say too flat, I mean the skill gap. There's not enough peaks and valleys in the performances, right?
Right.
It's too rigid. The structure of things too rigid. So the stats will matter more when the individual performances matter more because then that will give the stats meaning.
Right. No, and I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. But my thing is, you can't. It would be great if all of that came to a head at one point, at one time, right? But to me, I think to advance the whole process, you have to start to create some individuality, even if it's a mirage, right? Because here's the thing, there's a lot of numbers and statistics and things that combine numbers, especially that we gravitate to when it comes to the NBA draft and the NFL draft. And to be totally honest, it doesn't really mean anything on the next level. I mean, I can name you 10 guys off the top of my head who blew the NFL combine up and
I
sucked.
believe I think my favorite one was Tyler Hansborough recorded a better vertical leap than Blake Griffin.
Yeah, stuff like that, right? So like just totally blow your mind, and then sometimes it'll get a guy like you know this name, I'm sure, as soon as I say it, Vernon Golston, New York Jets, was supposed to have been an amazing pass rusher coming from Ohio State, went to the combine and ran a sick 40. He seemed like the quintessential pass rushing outside linebacker and sucked in the league, right? But here's the thing. The fact that Vernon Golston was a conversation piece,
right,
because we knew him, and we knew him because we had these numbers to attach to him, kept us interested. And the fact that he was a bust was actually good for the league and conversation, and then it happened in New York. Like, yes, that's great. So the 2K League needs that statistical reference even before it totally matters the right way. Get it there first anyway, because and don't be afraid to share the things like the steal efficiency, block efficiency, green efficiency, whatever, how many times you got back on defense, how many times you left your guy open, you're starting getting bad teammate grades. Share that, because now what it is it is the 2K League's equivalent of advanced metrics. Right.
Yeah.
So it goes beyond the points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks. And now it goes in because I was talking to someone from the 2K League, and they were telling me, they was like, well, we can put out here about how many steals and blocks, but we're finding that if you look at the block efficiency and steal efficiency, they're spamming. I'm like, I know, put that number out there too.
Right.
Educated 2K fan will go, oh, he's not as good because of this. The same way a surface level NBA fan will say, oh man, he averaged 28 points a game. But then they're not looking at the fact that he shot 37% from the field. You know what I'm saying? His turnovers are through the roof. They're not looking at some of those other types of advanced metrics. His usage rates through the roof.
I don't disagree with you at all, but I do think that it needs to happen on both ends. You need both
Yes.
top 10 Shaqtin' a Fool.
Yes.
And you need Synergy Sports. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I totally,
yeah.
I 100% agree.
And I do think that they're doing a poor job of both of those things. However, I also want to acknowledge and be totally fair that from a esports production standpoint, they've gotten a lot better. So that's
absolutely 100%.
And also, what we do, because we also interviewed Famous Enough, who's friend of the shows and all that stuff. Good guy, Miami, Heat gaming coaching, and he has said that they're putting more of a focus on the personalities and the chemistry going forward because they saw what an issue it is when you get the egos and the stuff like that.
And he had a fantastic draft. To me, his draft was comparable to the Mavs gaming draft, and he took a chance on a kid who is known as having a bit of a personality thing, and because of the culture that Famous has crafted with Heat Check Gaming, and because of the strength mentally of the other guys on the team, I think that kid will be fine. As a matter of fact, I think that kid's gonna flourish in that environment because it's the right place for him to be. So
Yeah.
I mean, dude, I really, spending that time with those guys and there with Chiquita and all, spending that time with them in the league, it really reignited my fire for the league again, because I'll be honest, it had dimmed quite a bit by the middle of the season last year. It
Yeah,
really had.
honestly, I'm kind of neutral on it still, but it's a positive neutrality in this sense. What I said they needed to do was they needed to create independent leagues,
Hmm.
and they needed to put their effort into those things to create both competition and a fertile ground of talent from which the 2K league could grow. Because there's going to be things that you guys do in your league that are better than 2K League, and there's going to be things in the 2K League that you guys could take from, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And last year, I saw a tremendous uptick in competitive pro am play. And 2K, to their credit, made an effort to put in private matchmaking. It didn't work until like yesterday. Hopefully, that keeps getting better. And I things are moving forward. I don't expect it to get perfect overnight. I do love the fact that the game is becoming more competitive. I think it's going to be 2 to 5 years before the game is what we hope it to be.
I would agree. I would
Um,
agree. I think you'll see
yeah,
incremental improvements between now and then that will make it more watchable every year. But I agree, 2 to 5 years is a realistic timeline for it to get
yeah,
to. But the good thing is the commitment from the prime stakeholders is there.
absolutely. Which goes back to our other point. That's why you kids have no value. This is welfare right now. They are backing you.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? That you're on scholarship. You
yeah,
are not making them money yet.
yeah. Not yet. You're not.
You have a
None of
long
them.
way to go before you make
None
them
of
money.
them are
Nah,
making money.
you are costing them money. Everybody is costing money.
That is actually an excellent perspective, an excellent way to look at it. There is not one single player in the league right now who is making the league money. Not
You
one.
all have negative value. And I say this as someone who wants you to have positive value. I came up in the fighting game community and watched people go from negative value to positive value. I want the same thing for the 2K players. I'm not your enemy. I'm not trying to knock on you. I'm saying be aware of your situation so you can make the best of it, grow from it, and become a person of value and make a legitimate living off of this. This is something that could be a failed project that does nothing but cost the NBA money and gets them into esports in a completely different way. They could dissolve this league 2, 3 years from now and create a whole new one that is completely different functionally, right?
Hmm.
So you guys,
I mean, I strongly doubt that would happen, but yeah, I mean,
I
theoretically,
hope
yes.
not. It could happen,
Theoretically, yes.
though, right? Because it ain't making them no money. That's why it's possible. Is so I don't want that to happen for the people that are involved. I don't want that to happen for 2K. Obviously, we have friends over at 2K. Um, Although I want Live to become a competitive product in its own right. Shout out to K Spade. So, I want the best for everybody. I want y'all all to make money, but y'all have to be realistic about what's going on right now. And in some sense, they've done that when they've done more in terms of making things competitive. That's a beautiful thing. Keep doing that. And on that note, if you're not in the 2K league and you haven't become part of these competitive leagues, understand those are the people who should be getting drafted. The people who put themselves, as we said in the Zach Levine discussion, through the competitive fire and proven their talent. They've been on teams. They've competed in tournaments. That is the most reliable data that you have. Anybody outside of that has less of a chance. Not saying it's impossible, but they have less of a chance. And you should have no beef with them going through these soft league systems that have happened, these independent league systems, and drafting players from that comp talent pool. You should be happy that there's at least a reliable path, particularly because if you win those competitive tournaments and you're not getting the results you want, you can at least say, I have this value, I'm a winner. As opposed to if you're competing in Pro Am and Rec Center, that's not an environment that anybody can trust because it doesn't take a very good player to have a really big winning record in Pro Am.
No, it really doesn't. It just takes you playing with the people you play with most of the time, and you guys not being idiots.
Right.
It's pretty much what it takes, So I got a couple things I did still want to touch on with this. The one thing is, and it speaks back to your presentation point. They really need to scan the players in, and so that their faces are actually there on the bodies, on the avatars during the games. It is the single thing that 2K can do as an esport that no other esport can do. There's no other esport that will allow the player to look like the kid or the person holding the controller. This is the only one, right? So to me, because you are not necessarily meeting the bar in so many other areas of evaluation from an esports standpoint, if you have this thing that allows you to be unique in that sense, I think that this is something that really needs to become a priority for the league, because I mentioned this once to someone from the 2K league. I said, imagine if there was a scan day. So after draft, about a week so after the draft, there's a actual official 2K scan day. 2K gets to scan and post all of these images of all of these guys and girls who are now in the league. The PR for that is awesome. You're helping them establish brands, all of this, and now people are it increases the chances that people are now looking for these people when they play. And now it's recognizable, because we're already having we're talking about the inability for these people, the players, to individualize themselves from others. It becomes even harder when they're not using characters that look like them. These are all things, like, I'm not trying to say this instead of the skill gap. I'm not trying to say this instead of anything else, but it all just contributes to the overall concept of allowing people to become individuals and individual brands. And this is something that 2K has the ability to do that I really think needs to be done. Um, Also, I really love the overall leadership, though, overall, of the 2K league. They are a joint venture. So sometimes what one way the league wants to go, maybe 2K can't go or doesn't want to go. So there's a thing sometimes that there's a struggle there. So it's important to know that. But lastly, we had another player get suspended this year, this just 2 days before the draft, or a day before the draft,
Mm.
for breaking code of conduct.
Mm-hmm.
Something on social media he forwarded or whatever, and it's actually a kid that I know who he is. I've met him several times, played ball with him. Nice guy, good guy. Timely cook. He was on Steel Trio when they won. It was him, Dimes, and he was on that team, so he's very much well known. He played for Kingsguard Gaming last year. But something happened. I don't know the full extent of everything, but he ended up getting bumped from the league and suspended for a year, eligible to try to come back in season 3. But literally, he just gave up at minimum 40 grand. So he literally sent a $40,000 tweet or $40,000 Facebook post is what happened. And I know that the players are getting some level of social media etiquette, some level of training on that, but clearly there are people that are not taking advantage of it. And I'll give you a quick story, and I swear we'll move on. There was a kid, and he had to change his name, and I'm not sure exactly what he changed his name to, so I'm not even sure if the kid got drafted or not. But the kid's name was This White Boy.
Okay.
So, and he's my old friend's boy. He's White Chocolate's guy, right?
Okay.
So, if for anybody that doesn't know, White Chocolate and I are cool. And I have no problem with him. We've talked several times, DM'd and messaged each other several times. I found out that his birthday is the same day as my birthday, which was hilarious in itself, right? So I hit him up and I told him, I said, hey, bro, man, you might want to tell your guy, because I knew he was going for the league. I said, man, you might want to tell your guy, man, he might need to change that PSN or that gamer tag. I was like, think about it, man. I said, let me paint a picture for you. Scott Cole's voice. And Dimes comes up the court and passes it to this white boy in the corner.
Yeah.
This white boy's got takeover. This white boy is killing Nick's game in the day. Nobody can stop this white boy. I'm
I
like,
mean,
so think about
that much worse than authentic African?
and you know what? It's so funny that you said that because that's the exact same thing White Chocolate said.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Where is the country of white boy?
That's fair.
Where is the country white boy? There is no country white boy. That doesn't exist. So my thing is, think about where you want to go. All right. Where is it that you want to go? And do I have anything attached to me that is going
You
to
know,
prevent me from going where I want to go?
and this is why they need to get onto their individual expression more. Because I'm gonna tell you straight up, the NBA brand for people this young in this arena for esports is stale.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fighting game player named Magnegro. That's right, Magnegro.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think at one point he played Magneto, and he is indeed a Negro.
Okay.
And nobody bats an eye,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's some brown kid is another guy, good Marvel versus Capcom player. It happens all the time, right? So it's just a funny thing that you look at it and you move on. The league is too stodgy for that. And that's not a great look when it comes to esports unless you become like the Overwatch League where you can go all the way to the point of being like the sport. And they need to get there as fast as possible. Because the fact that a funny, harmless name like this white boy can't be in the league, and I think you're right. I think there is a weird thing there because it's racial, it's not national. It's not
Yeah.
like,
Yes.
some German kid or whatever, right? Which would be
Yeah.
a little bit different. That having been said, they need to work on it because they too uptight to be this dry on the court too.
Yeah, you know what? I honestly don't think that they're that uptight. The amount of trash talk that they allowed last year to go on, and not even just allowed, that they encouraged. You know, I don't think that they're that uptight.
Well, okay, let me make a quick comparison for you.
Mhm,
If you look at the top park content providers
right?
and their language,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
NBA is way too uptight
Oh yeah,
by
oh yeah,
comparison.
yeah.
And I'm not even
Swante can't be on in the 2K league.
correct. Correct. Sure, they're not calling Steezo up right now.
Yeah, Swante is I'm his favorite. I'm his favorite journalist, if
Yeah.
you didn't know.
Yeah.
But
Why is that, Brian?
oh, I don't know. Couple things happened. It is what it is. But let's
Yeah.
just move on. I thought I just definitely wanted to give it some time because I spent some good time there. And I can thoroughly say I enjoyed the experience and I'm looking forward to the season. And
Yeah,
that's not something that I was 100% feeling before Tuesday. So that's a good thing. So